I love that Andor says his luck is running out. Yeah, dude, your luck is going to run out, but it's going to run out at the right moment. He's going to make the ultimate sacrifice and it will pay off. He's the hero we don't deserve, but the hero we need. I'm so stoked on that. Like, Andor may have become my favorite hero in the Star Wars universe through this prequel to a prequel to the best Star Wars ever, A New Hope.
Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan. Krypton to Alderaan.
Welcome, everyone, to Krypton to Alderaan. I'm Joey, your Star Wars lover, and with me is Royish Goodlooks, your Star Wars song guy.
Hello, Joey. Hello, podcast.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are the video podcast that analyzes nerdy pop culture, but it's mostly Star Wars. In this episode, we are somewhat unfortunately talking about episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Andor Season 2. Let's see, what are they called? Messenger, Who Are You? Best line in Star Wars history. I'm your father. May the Force be with you. Kick him to the curb. Who are you? Best line in Star Wars. And welcome to the rebellion. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you can tune in next week for our coverage of our breakdown analysis, whatever you want to call it, of the finale of Andor Season 2, the finale of Andor, not Andor himself, but the show, the last 3 episodes. Hit the button so you don't miss out on what we have to say about that. But I feel like we should just jump right in to the show. I'm a little hesitant to get into this, like doing a vibe check. Like, what could our vibe possibly be? Despair, sorrow, heartbreak. Joey, but let's just talk about it.
I'm 100% with you of like, you're like, oh, we have to talk about these episodes. The show has been so heavy so far, and behind the scenes, we're recording a day earlier than we usually do. Today is usually the day I rewatch everything, so I haven't rewatched these episodes. I've been thinking about them, but I kind of don't want to rewatch them. Like, they were that heavy of like, we were living in the Ghorman Massacre. I felt like I was on the ground with them, heart pumping. I'm sure everybody else felt the same way. What I really loved about this arc in particular is that we were living like concisely in that story. However uncomfortable it was, we got the payoff for that Ghorman Massacre. We're on the street with everyone. And it was nice that we had that kind of cohesion, that we weren't jumping around, that we didn't see what Saw Gerrera was up to in the middle of this, that as much as I wanted to see some more fun Saw action, this was great that we were just in these concise stories this week. Same thing with Mon Mothma in the Senate, like her giving the speech, trying to escape, like, you're there, right? And the funny thing is, Andor makes it out, Mon Mothma makes it out, but how? You have me on the edge of my seat every minute. I was yelling at the screen for all of these episodes. And probably the thing I enjoyed most about these arcs, Joey, is that now, like this Ghorman Massacre, Mon Mothma leaving the Senate, it's paid off. Next week, I have no idea where we're going. We could do anything. And I really love that now we have that freedom and not the like, well, how do we wrap up the massacre and Syril and, all these things. We obviously still have to tie it into Rogue One, but we've already paid off the thing that we were teasing for the beginning of the season. So I think that's a really interesting way now to go into this finale of they've got even more freedom to show us what they've been hiding. But man, this was heavy, this arc, but it's over now. So that's how I feel. How do you feel about it?
Yeah. Very, very heavy, very traumatic, very, very traumatizing, but just like you're saying, incredible to see this thing that they've been building up to in the like penultimate arc.
It could have been a finale.
Yeah, exactly. And it very much felt that way. And there's so much that happens in that second episode. And it wasn't even the longest episode of the arc. Like, Who Are You is the Ghorman Massacre episode, which is something else I did not expect. I expected the Ghorman Massacre episode to be the finale of the arc. To put it right in the middle was very surprising to me, and so much happens. Yeah, seeing that and then seeing Mon Mothma escape, have to be rescued from and escape the Senate. You mentioned that this being a payoff to stuff that they've been setting up all season. It's stuff that they set up in season 1. Mon Mothma mentions the Ghormans in season 1 with the original Ghorman Massacre, where Tarkin just landed a ship on people. It's paying off what some of us learned about many years ago from Star Wars Rebels and what happened simultaneously to this episode in Star Wars Rebels. And there's a Star Wars Rebels episode that's like a sequel to this arc, actually. You could go and watch Secret Cargo, which is the episode that's directly after this. So it's incredible the way they're tying it all in together, filling in the somehow of it all. But but in a really, really traumatic way.
Brutal was the note I took.
Yeah, absolutely brutal, heartbreaking. We've spent time with these characters, right? Like that's always the thing that they always do is get us like emotionally invested in the characters. But I think like we're just emotionally invested in people. And when we see this stuff happening to people, it's heartbreaking. We see Andor's reaction to it and him crying in the truck. At the end, listening to the broadcast.
Is there no one who can help? Dude, that line of dialogue.
That hurts.
The delivery.
That hurts.
Perfect there. And
yes.
After living through the massacre there and hearing that on the radio broadcast as if you were a citizen, on the street. Yeah. Powerful.
And he got out, and not many people do. So when he's standing outside of the Senate chamber listening to Mon Mothma's speech, I think that that's the moment that she's his leader, I think. Even though he goes back and he says, Bix, I'm done. I think that moment when he's listening to Mon Mothma speak, having just come from Ghorman himself, he survived. He's crying in the truck. He's listening to that broadcast. He was there. He saw it. And to hear her speak about it the way she was speaking about it, I think that's the moment where he decides that she is the rebel leader that he can get behind. We've been talking about it being uncomfortable, like the show being uncomfortable on purpose, and this was obviously a whole new level to that. And I think part of it is that it's not a hard connection to make to our real world, this kind of thing happening. Like a lot of what was put forth in that second episode is based in reality. The propaganda machine of the Empire. We cut from Partagaz spewing rhetoric to Dedra, and then immediately it cuts to like one of the media channels in the field in Ghorman saying the exact same line about imperial norms and the Ghormans not following imperial norms. Like it's verbatim. You can track the propaganda. All of that was obviously incredibly uncomfortable. Like you said, we were on the edge of our seats the entire episode, just waiting for the shoe to drop. And when it finally does, it's horrible and it's intense.
Yeah, I found myself totally immersed in that. It wasn't just like on the edge of my seat. It was like you're watching as, they have the sniper that shoots the Imperial and you're like, no, like, and maybe somebody in the crowd noticed that, you have the one Ghorman that's like, I'm going to sing the song instead of like riling up the crowd. So you're seeing all these different angles of how people are approaching the protest, from both the Imperial side and, the Ghormans and in Andor as well. And you're in it, or even Syril's point of view. One of the brilliant things they've done with this show is show you all those different angles. You can sympathize with all of them to a degree. Like even with Dedra, you're like, you kind of feel bad for her the way things work out for her. You feel bad for Syril the way things work out for them, even though you're like, screw these guys. They're both on the wrong team. They're both bad guys. Everyone's being played. But either way, like you're there, and you're like, there's nothing you can do. You've got the one Ghorman Webbery guy that's like, we could stop this, how do we do this? And it's just out of control. They made us as viewers feel that, which is incredible. Like there's plenty of times I'm watching TV and I'm like, this is okay, and it's just for entertainment. And this didn't feel, none of this season has felt for entertainment, save for a few of the comedic, relief moments, or the X-Wing, gratuitous moments. We're like, cool, yeah, pew pew. But this was not that, right? Oh, dude, another note to lighten this up a little bit. Almost no music during like the bulk of the massacre scene. It fades in towards the end when it starts to, kind of fizzle out. But it was very much like the pod race, or I'm trying to think of some other scenes. I was just watching Star Wars on May the 4th. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
But relying more on ambient sounds.
The dialogue in the scene of people just yelling and like hearing the blasters, relying on the sound effects, and the just immersion again in the scene rather than taking you out of it with like, the revolution starts now.
Yeah. And relying on the music in the scene, whether that's like them singing the anthem that was, again, the diegetic stuff
love
is
that.
incredible. Another chant, we get another chant, which we've gotten throughout the entire series, right? These really good, rebellious protest moments of these chants happening, and Lazine, who was kind of an agitator, in my interpretation, an agitator in the last arc, and then Cinta got shot, and then somewhere along the way, Rylands must have gotten ousted from being the leader of the Ghorman front. Lazine goes into the crowd to try to bring things down, by singing the anthem. Every step of the way, when we're sitting back and watching it from a bird's eye view, you're saying you're immersed, but I was also finding myself like, it was a very interesting experience to be understanding what the Empire's motivation was at every step. Like, they're sending in the young soldiers to like exacerbate the situation, but to also take the hit to start this battle, to start this massacre. They are cannon fodder, these young soldiers. And like, you could see their commanding officer being like, why do we have these very green soldiers here to do this? Well, they had to be sacrificed for the Empire to make this claim. Seeing stuff like that, understanding stuff like that is going to happen right before it happens, deeply uncomfortable and unsettling. And it's also filled me with fire, which I mean, this is why, again, maybe it's part of the immersion into the show of like, this is why Cassian does what he does. This is why you could feel it from Mon Mothma too, when she's talking with the Ghorman senator and then he gets arrested. And then her confrontation with Luthen in the square when she's practicing her speech, you could watch the fire in her grow. And I felt that too, which is why I have absolutely no connection to Dedra or Syril. Dedra started, this is all Dedra's fault. She's the one who told Krennic, like, you need an insurrection you can count on to fail, to kind of create this martyr that, look, the Empire has to come in and deal with these insurrectionists in order to like invoke martial law to take over the planet. This was her plan. And just because it worked exactly the way she said it was going to work, now she's she's rightfully so freaking out and realizing that she's not the hero. The Empire is not the hero. And when you are part of a lie, you can maybe like believe the lie and the propaganda. But when you create the lie, when you have a hand in creating the lie, you know it's a lie. And that, I think, is what we see from her at the end when she's shaking and pulling on her shirt and she's like crumbling her belief, her faith. Truth and faith was a big thing in these 3 episodes, and all of that is falling away. The same with Syril, not knowing what he was doing there, but he's still part of the Empire machine and was very happy to be part of that machine up until now. From season 1, he made sure a lot of people died on Ferrix. Like, his hands are not clean in any of this. And he believed in the Empire and he had faith in the Empire until the very last minute. So I have very little remorse for them as immersed. I think because I was so immersed on the other side of being like, wow, they really, like, their plan worked so well. Like we were saying last week, like the Empire was really good at this. And because of that, I've joined the rebellion if I hadn't already. Like, they convinced me of that. It's also incredible that I've been saying like episode 2 for the past 2 arcs have been like the ones that I kind of like what happened in episode 2.
Oh yeah.
And in this arc,
Yeah.
episode 2 was like the episode.
Dude, but to your point, the third one, the Senate one, like it didn't end, you know? And I knew it was an hour and 1 minute long or whatever on the runtime. I kept thinking like, okay, it's going to end here. And I'm like, oh, I want more. And it kept going, you know, there was another scene. So it was interesting how much they crammed in. Like the Ghorman Massacre, it wasn't long, like you're saying, but they cut right to the chase and it was heavy, and that we were just in it. It was very dense. And then, yeah, with the Mon Mothma episode, there was still a lot in that too. Little less intense, I would say, but still that suspenseful nature of like, how is she going to make it out of here? They set up so many, you know, possibilities of like, does she get captured? You know, where's the standoff?
Yeah, really good payoff there. And like bleeding one. So this is also the first arc where I watched all 3 episodes in a row. The Who Are You ended, and I was like, I can't not watch the next episode. But it's also a payoff of like, again, stuff we saw from her in season 1 with her saying, I'm the only one taking a real risk here, right? She's in the Senate, Luthen's in his gallery, and we don't see any connection to Perrin or Lita. Mon Mothma she approaches Bail. She says something has to be done. I have to give a speech. We have to make a stand. And then we have to go to Yavin. We have to get out of here. Whatever has happened, whether she's disconnected from Perrin, whether they were like, well, the kids are out of the house so we can get divorced now, or whatever it is.
Dude, I wanted to ask you like, oh, what about Perrin? I'm like, Joey hates this guy. But like, yeah, what about him? Like, everyone's making sacrifices. Like, I don't really know what their relationship, you know, we've seen some of it, but who knows if there's actually some love there. Like, there's still loss there. And like you said, her child, like, that's huge. She's giving up a lot there. And I wonder if Perrin is like, what the heck, man? I had like one of the coolest like partners like in the entire Senate. He's going to be a traitor, you know? They're going to look into him.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, I don't feel bad for Dedra and Syril. Perrin might end up catching some flack for this, though, in my headcanon.
I also watched the episodes before we started recording. I rewatched, and I'm so emotionally on edge. They were also episodes where I cried during episode 2, and I was so like emotionally raw from episode 2 that a lot of stuff in episode 3, like, the feeling where like a pin drop can make your eyes swell and you're just emotionally on edge. And I'm still feeling that. So when you said that Perrin is like, what happened? I had one of the coolest partners in the galaxy, or that he's taking, I'm still feeling pretty emotional, even though I have not really liked that character. But in the last arc, something that we didn't talk about here was when Mon and Krennic are going back and forth at the party that they're all at in the last arc. Skolden and Perrin back Mon up when she's like having this fight with Krennic, or this debate with Krennic. Like, they are both at her side. They literally, I think, like, come and back her up. And I thought that was I thought that might have been a turning point for their relationship. Like, this guy can actually step up, and maybe he is learning something, and maybe it's because he can't have the fun parties that he used to have, and his world's being torn apart because instead of having one fun party, he has to go to 8 fun parties, and that's too hard for him. So his world's getting a little bit upside down too. But I thought that all of that from that arc might have been a turning point for him, and we don't see him again. But what you just said about him, like maybe taking some heat, did not register for me until right now. But maybe he's on the other side. Maybe he does think his wife's a traitor. Maybe Leda thinks her mom's a traitor, because that's what the Empire is going to tell them.
Right.
And we already know that we've seen that they don't maybe like her very much. So
yeah, this is the brilliance of the show, though, is like that nuance there is, wow, it's great. The filling in the somehow, even if they don't fill it in, it's like the mystery that's there. It's still incredibly rich. The Bale side of this, of like, he's like, oh, I'm not ready for Yavin yet. Like, Yavin's not ready. I'm going to stay here in a year. I'll be there. And you're like, are you going to make it out? And you're like, he's there. He's there in Rogue One. It just blows my mind that they can just put a line of dialogue like, I'm not leaving with you. I'm going to stay here to buy some time. And you're like, dude, but you got to go.
Yeah,
and that
it's not safe.
But it's still sold to us as a viewer, even though you consciously know, he makes it to Alderaan, but it's still dangerous in the meantime, and you still feel how heavy that is.
Yep, it's very brilliant. I mean, the creative team is incredible, and Dan Gilroy, Tony Gilroy's brother, wrote these 3 episodes, and I think that, these were the most incredible episodes. The show's been great, but these were the most incredible episodes of at least this season, I think. And it's because, in no small part to that. Mon is sacrificing everything, like she said that she was the only one doing in season 1. Regardless of her relationship with Perrin and Leda, she is giving all of that up and everything else she has because of what's been happening and because of what happened on Ghorman. And so she is the real hero of this story. I want to go back to something I said maybe last week. How do they win was my point last week. Like, how do the rebels win? The Empire is so good at this, and it's still true. I said they need someone with superpowers to swoop in. They need Luke Skywalker to make the trench run and get that, 1 in a million shot. But the real answer is Mon. The answer that I've had in my mind with asking, like, how do they win, is Mon Mothma. She is the hero. She is the one who is able to bring the rebellion together to the point where they can function and they have someone to stand behind. And the Ghorman Massacre provided this platform for her, but this is where they begin to win. They're already set up on Yavin, but now they have her, and she's going to make another speech that we see in Star Wars Rebels, and she's going to unite the rebels, and this is how they begin to win.
We need people that make these speeches to rally all the troops. All the cool stuff that happens in Star Wars, all the pivotal moments come right after somebody gives that inspirational line. We're taking the fight to them. I'm trying to think of the lines from We Are the Spark.
It's from Independence Day.
Yeah, but this is where they ripped it from, right? Or Independence Day is where they ripped it from. We are the spark that lights the fire that burns the First Order down. That motivational speech, it's like, okay, we're going to rally together and we're going to take the fight to them. That's what Mon is starting to do there. It's not quite a fight yet. She's just got to rally the people first and then bring them to the actual fight. You almost need a politician to do that, She's got that power. Andor's had little moments where he's delivered some interesting lines of dialogue to other people, like the fighter pilot on Sinar or whatever in the first episode. But yeah, she's got a different role than Andor. Dude, what this arc sold me on and what this show in general is selling me on, Andor's journey, like you said, Mon's the hero here, but Andor's journey, finally accepting the fact that he could be the hero. At the end of this arc, Bix leaves him because she's like, if I don't leave, you're not going to do the right thing. So I'm going to make the choice for you. Andor's saying, I want to make my own choices, which we can all kind of relate to as well. When like stuff gets hard, you're like, I just want to be able to control everything. I love that Andor says his luck is running out. He doesn't know. And it's like, yeah, dude, your luck is going to run out, but it's going to run out at the right moment. Just like the Force healer. It's like, you have the weight of the future on you. Andor wants to run away from it. He's got this sort of like anti-hero's journey. He's like already been doing all the hard work, but he just can't keep going. And he needs to find the hope and the faith. And when Bix leaves, now Andor's got no choice. He's got to fully commit. We talked about this last week with Vel. Are you going to follow the orders, follow the chain of command? Andor's ignoring sort of the chain of command in this. He wants to go on his revenge arc to go murder Dedra. He can't pull that off. And so now what's left? It's like to actually do the right thing, to give up all his reluctancy and become the hero. I don't know if this is lame to compare it to The Dark Knight, but like he is. Like he's the hero, we don't deserve, but the hero we need. He's given up everything. Luke kind of accidentally falls in it, and he's got all this, historical lineage that comes along with it, and he's going to pick up a laser sword and get the 1 in a million shot. We need him to. He deserves to be the beacon of light. Andor's not a beacon of light. He's such a curmudgeon, There are very few moments where you're like, I want to be like Andor when I grow up. It's not the typical hero's journey. But now at the end of this arc, like it's interesting they set up with K2SO, because I think originally when we heard there was going to be an Andor show, we were like, it's going to be K2 and SO buddy cop adventures with those two. Not at all what this show turned out to be. But now he has I'm the only one with clarity of purpose here. Andor, and Mon at the end of this episode too, or this arc, they're the only ones with now clarity. Maybe not the only ones, but they have clarity. And wow, what that will open up for the very finale of the show leading into Rogue One. He's got nothing to lose. He's going to make the ultimate sacrifice, and it will pay off. That luck line is great. When's your luck going to run out? Your best is enough, that sort of thing. I'm so stoked on that. Like, Andor may have become my favorite character, my favorite hero in the Star Wars universe through this prequel to a prequel to the best Star Wars ever, A New Hope.
That is high praise. You should write a review. You should write a Rotten Tomatoes review or something to that effect. It's interesting because I'm looking at it from a very different perspective, I guess, where I do see Mon Mothma is the figurehead hero of the rebellion, and she does a really great job at making the rebellion the rebellion. This show has been about the street level rebels. Luke's destiny to blow up the Death Star, the Force had a plan for him, and he fulfilled the plan. But it's almost like maybe Andor's destiny is to get the Death Star plans. But up until now, it has felt like the destiny's kind of been sprinkled across all of these different people that we've been interacting with. There is no one chosen one in this story. There's main characters, and Cassian is the main character. Cassian Andor is the main character of the show called Andor, but that main character is not a chosen one. He is a reluctant hero, like you've said, like we've said about, the Bad Batch crew members as well, where they might have a destiny, but it's like it's like sprinkled out amongst them, and they work together to fulfill this journey. Now that I'm recontextualizing Rogue One, which we need to talk about, we just are going to need to watch Rogue One after this and reflect back. But in my recontextualization of Rogue One after this arc specifically, with Bix leaving, Bix kind of taking away his choice. He wanted to make a choice. That's all he said in this arc. He said, I want to make my own choices. I want to make a choice. I've made a choice. I'm going. And whether the Force healer saw something and told Bix what she saw, he made his choice, and Bix kind of took it away. I get it. It's for the greater good, but it still hurts. It's still not what I want to see. I want to see my hero ride off into the sunset with his love. Thinking about Rogue One and how he carries himself in Rogue One yes, he's a soldier, he's a leader, but he's lost it all. He's not happy. He's still a curmudgeon in Rogue One, even more so, because he's been in the fight since he was 6-year-old. He hasn't caught a break. He's run on luck this whole time. He's had to watch his sister. He couldn't find his sister. He had to watch Marva die. He had to watch Brasso die. He had to watch Bix leave. He's truly lost everything. And he says to Jin, you're not the only one who's lost everything, but we have been there alongside of him. And so understanding that he's not the Poe Dameron in Andor. He's not really the traditional hero character we see. He's the I've lost everything, I'm good at this, I might as well do this hero from my point of view. It's still great. He's still a hero. But now that we have had time with him and we've seen his story leading up to Rogue One, his presence makes so much more sense. But it definitely, we can see why he's not like the inspirational hero, maybe. I don't know what the right phrase is for this, but he's just not the kind of hero that we've seen before.
Right. Yeah, I think of Rey in The Last Jedi, where she's like, you're Luke Skywalker, you know, and you're like, that's a story, kid. And the real story is all of this hard-earned. We're talking about like, oh, we're going to get these little wins, which, by the way, we got very few little wins, if any, in this particular arc. But that's it. It's these like the battles that you're fighting every day with good or bad outcomes, but you continue to fight rather than, you know, the 1 in a million shot. Luke, he loses Obi-Wan, you know, in A New Hope and his aunt and uncle, and he has to leave home. But like, he already wanted to leave home. He already wanted to go on this great adventure. That's not what Andor wanted. At this point, Andor's like, and he's already put in all this work. All he wants to do is run away with Bix. And everybody can relate to that. You know, you want to check out, you want to like hit the lottery, you know, and go live your life. There's something very human about it of like when it gets so hard to deal with that you do want to check out. And it's like, well, actually, at that moment, again, like the Dark Knight, like this is where the real heroes are made. Are you going to walk away from the fight when we need you the most? Like we're at, you know, the 1 yard line here, dude. We're at the 1 BBY yard line. Like we got to go.
Yeah. I love that. I love that this show has given us that. And it doesn't feel good. I'm inspired by how they've inspired the rebels, like the actions that the showrunners have taken to inspire the rebellion in that they've had the Empire commit these atrocities, and that fills me with fire, like I said. But I want a better life for Cassian. Like I do not want him to take the next step of his journey. I want him to go away with Bix.
This is the story of Andor, though, dude. You've got Kino Loy, and you're like, I want him to jump out of that prison and for someone to grab him and to make it to the shore, you know? That's not his story, though. But what he, you know, without him, Andor doesn't break out. You know, Melshi doesn't break out. Who knows who else broke out of that prison? Those stories are all throughout Andor. I don't know, the people working at the Webberies there, like this guy that was actively engaging with Luthen and the Ghorman front rebels. He obviously had a Webbery business there as well. He probably enjoyed that, you know?
Yeah, and the kid who was the bellhop who witnessed the first Ghorman Massacre and then joined the Ghorman front, and we saw that he was like covering for Andor. These little heroes, we're calling them heroes. They wouldn't call themselves heroes, right? The real heroes of these stories are the ones that are the reluctant, like they're doing the work for the greater good. And meanwhile, the Empire, the ones who want to be heroes, the ones who want the accolades are the ones like getting taken down and getting taken out and failing at their job. And they will be called heroes by the Empire.
The bellhop and, you know, all these like little heroes, you know, they don't know they're heroes. You got all those great little moments. The people working for the Empire don't stand for anything.
Yeah.
You know, this is callback for the Krypton to Alderaan podcast. This is the postman. You know why you can't win? Because you don't believe in anything.
I believe in the United States.
Right? These individual people, or they just believe in the wrong thing. All the rebels, you know, they believe in each other. They believe in their people. They believe in fighting against the oppression. That is the spark. You know, that's the thing that they need to hold on to, that Andor's starting to lose in this because he's like, it's too hard. But you actually have a reason to fight rather than the Dedras that are like, I'm looking for the glory for my emperor. Like, that's lame, you know?
Yeah.
What are we really trying to accomplish here to do something for, you know, a greater good? The emperor he just wants unlimited power. It's the stupidest thing. Like, why would you support that? You know, like there's nothing that person wants to do for the actual galaxy. Star Wars Explained was sharing that one quote from the book about the Empire doesn't care about justice, you know? That's the thing. You know, Dedra, Syril, they're in it for the wrong reasons, and Andor is losing sight of the reasons he's in it but he gets clarity at the end of this episode. He will inevitably become the hero. Everyone's been saying that this is the greatest episode of all television. You know, it's number one on IMDb, which is cool, right? And Andor, it's the greatest Star Wars show. Like, Star Wars is back. I see a lot of comments. Disney, take note. I don't want all Star Wars to be this. This is great for what it is. And I love the gravitas, again, that it adds to Rogue One in A New Hope. But, like, especially coming off of Skeleton Crew, like, I love the lighthearted adventure. I love the kid that's like, you know?
Yeah.
The stories, we were making fun of the stories earlier, but like, yeah, the stories, the adventures, the legends. Andor is great. I love how powerful it is. And I'm excited to see where it goes next week and how it wraps up with Rogue One and ties into that. It is so excellent, but I'm glad that it is not the only thing. And it's interesting to me to see so many comments about how this is like, let's put it up on the pedestal. And it is great for what it is, but it's not the only thing. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have so many thoughts, and I think it connects back to a lot of the stuff we've said on this show, a lot. And I also think it comes back to the Empire versus the rebels, and the Empire dealing with order and structure and being very black and white, and the rebels just kind of being like, everybody, whether you can see yourself in Cassian or the Bellhop or Bix or Marva or B2 or Brasso, there's someone in the rebellion for everyone. There's not someone in the Empire for everyone. And this show is great. And this show is something for someone. And maybe there are even people out there, dare I say, that don't like Andor.
Yeah.
And don't like this show. And I've talked a lot about, you know, we come out of a lot of the shows that have come out this past year with people saying this is not George Lucas's Star Wars. And I think that Andor is some of the least George Lucas-y Star Wars. It's rooted deeply in the politics that George Lucas built the original trilogy on. Like, this is the most bare bones political anti-fascist version of what of the story that he wanted to tell in the original trilogy. So check box there. It's got some George Lucas in it. But putting these things in boxes, it's a great show. Skeleton Crew was a great show. I loved The Acolyte. It doesn't matter. Disney, take note. That's dumb. This is something for someone. And what we're getting from Disney, by the way, this is a Disney show. What we're getting more and more is Star Wars for everyone. There is something for everyone. A little bit of that is Andor, and a little bit of that is The Bad Batch, and a little bit of that is Tales, and a little bit of that is Skeleton Crew. And so everyone has something to connect to. And we should all be really, really, every single fan of Star Wars should be really, really happy about that. And yeah, let's put Andor up. It deserves accolades. It deserves, yes, this is a phenomenal show. But let's not compare it to every other Star Wars show. That is just not fair. It's just not fair, and it's not generous. And as we say here a lot, if anyone's even still listening to this, that we try to have the most generous takes. And I think like saying this is good and something else is bad, and there should be more like this, is just not generous. People like this and people like that. And whatever you like about Star Wars is what you like about Star Wars, and that's the best part about Star Wars.
Couldn't agree more. Also, Andor and whatever property is made better by the other ones. Like the tie-in with Rebels, like you're saying, like, hey, go watch Secret Cargo and watch Mon Mothma's speech. There's Star Wars for everyone. We have to keep coming back to this conversation. I think it's important, especially when people start to divide, like, Andor's the best, everything else is trash, Disney, rewrite everything. No.
Yeah.
We've said our piece, though. Listeners, we'd love to keep this conversation going. Head down to the comments, leave some thoughts. We'd love to hear from you. And make sure to hit subscribe and tune in next time for more nerdy pop culture, but mostly Star Wars. Thanks for listening to the show today. I've been Royce.
I've been Captain Kaido. Oh, he sucks. Remember when he's smiling when the stormtroopers are killing all the people in the square? Anyway.
And we've been Krypton to Alderaan.
Yavin?